Start with verse 27 and read all the way to 30.
This is the genealogy of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in his native land, in Ur of the Chaldeans. Then Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarah was barren, she had no children. And Terah...
Okay, you can stop there. So now what we want to do, under Haran, we're going to put his 3 children. So if you would put Sarah's name under Abram. Oh, Abram. And under Haran, put Lot. And under Nahor, put Milcah. And I know there's another line out there, but we're not going to get to that one for quite a while. All right. So now we see Abram. Okay. Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai. So we've got her name right under Abram. And the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. We have her right under Nahor. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren, she had no children. So now that leaves us, okay, first we want to say this. Well, we have Iscah. But Iscah is an affectionate name for Sarai, or Sarai, whichever we want to say it. So what the 2 men did, the brothers of Haran married the daughters of Haran, and so that's how they got married. They married their relatives. In today's time, that would be incest. We wouldn't care for that. But in that time, that's what they did. In America, the marriages of Abram and Nahor would not be viewed as acceptable practice, and we looked at their wives. Now, the rabbinic commentary. When Haran died, his brothers Abraham and Nahor married his daughters to carry on his memory to assuage Terah's grief. The name Sarai, her name was later changed to Sarah, just as Abram's change of name signified a new and greater role for him, so did Sarai's. Okay, so turn the sheet over if you would. And so, but we had this name Iscah and rabbinic commentary. Debbie, would you read that, please?
Sure. Tell me when to stop. Iscah was Sarah. She was called Iscah from the Hebrew word meaning to see, gaze, because she could see the future by holy inspiration, and because everyone gazed at her beauty. Also, Iscah denotes aristocracy, as does her name Sarai, which means my princess.
Okay, stop there a minute. That bothered me for a while, that she had a different name, Iscah, but it's an affectionate name. Well, my youngest son, Daniel, married a woman named Sarah. She has 2 sisters. In January, I went to the baby shower because they're going to have a baby. And when I got to the baby shower, everyone called Sarah Emmy. And it's like, I'm used to calling her Sarah. They call her Emmy. Aunts, sisters, other relatives all called her Emmy. And so I realized with Sarai, who's called Iscah, this is an affectionate name. And Milcah didn't have a separate name like that. Neither did my daughter-in-law, Sarah. Her sisters didn't have affectionate names. It was just her. How that happens in a family, I don't know, but it sometimes does. So in this case, Sarai had a separate name, and this word Iscah is used only this one time in the entire Bible.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, now Debbie, would you go ahead with Maharael's comments? Again, we're still in the rabbinic commentary out of the Chumash.
Maharal comments on Sarai's 2 names. A woman has two missions in life. The first from birth as an individual, and the second when she marries and is elevated to a higher joint mission with her husband. Thus, Iscah is the name indicating her personal greatness, and Sarai, Sarah, the name indicating her Abrahamic mission, is used exclusively from the time of her marriage.
All right, she's not called Iscah anymore. She's called Sarai at the marriage. Now, another thing that I wish to pay attention to. We know that Abram is just 10 years older than Sarai. He's a brother of Haran, but Haran was old enough to already have 3 children. So this lets us know about the brothers, that Abram was considerably younger than Haran. We don't know for sure about Nahor. We know that Nahor wasn't married yet because he didn't marry until Haran died, and he took Milcah for his wife. So we know that Nahor and Abram were both considerably younger than Haran, but how much younger and which one was born first, we are not told that. So now we have it in the family. We have Sarai is married, Milcah's married, and Lot is even younger. It is, you'll figure this out as we read along, that he doesn't have offspring until quite a bit later on. So he's
he's like the baby.
He's like the baby of the family, right? Okay, Robert, would you read from it says, please read Genesis 12, 1-3, and then read that paragraph there.
Okay. Now the Lord had said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to the land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you, and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I'll curse him who curse you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed.
I'll take that.
You bet. Okay, so now would you also read on that page of the where we have commentary, read that 12, 1-3, and where it says note.
Okay. The Abrahamic covenant is the chief redemptive covenant. Every blessing that redeems believers within both Israel and the church flows from this covenant. While the covenant is first introduced in this passage, it is reaffirmed in Genesis 15, 1-21, and Genesis 17, 1-21, and then renewed with Isaac in Genesis 26, 2-5, and Jacob in Genesis 28, 10-17. The 3 major provisions of the Abrahamic covenant are land for Abraham and Israel, descendants, including Christ, and a worldwide blessing.
All right, so now I want you to see how far they travel. So I'm passing around a map, and we're going to take a look at it and see where they started out, and see this path.
Wow.
Okay, thanks. All right. If you look down on the right, you see Chaldea, and you see just above it that dot that says Ur. Well, Abram is from the Ur of the Chaldees. And then they travel to Haran. Now you need to look up north and see the words Padan Aram, and between those 2 words you see that dot that says Haran. They traveled that far
All the way up here.
on foot
Wow.
or camel, whatever. That was a long trip,
Yeah.
very long trip, and they're still not down into the land of Canaan yet. They're just there in Haran. Okay, so now we need to go to verse 4. In verse 4, John, would you read that, please?
So Abram left, as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran.
Go ahead and read verse 5 too.
He took his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people that they had acquired in Haran. And they set out for the land of
Canaan.
Canaan, and they arrived there.
Okay, so now what we see on our sheet is on 12:4, it says, shows that Abram, his wife and nephew, left the city of Haran. So that means the daughter of Haran named Milcah stayed with Nahor. Nahor didn't travel to Haran. Nahor, as far as we know, is still back at the Ur of the Chaldees, but at some point in time, we know that they did travel up there. Maybe they traveled now. But we know for sure that whenever they're leaving Haran, that Abram has the nephew Lot and his wife Sarai. Now it says in the commentary, Abram took his wife Sarai and Lot. The rabbinic commentary says Abraham took Sarah through persuasion because a man is forbidden to take his wife to a foreign land without her consent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Need to remember that.
Oh,
Oh, that's a good one.
But it didn't
Yeah.
say I couldn't take you to a foreign.
Right. Right.
take him to the woodshed.
Yeah. Okay, so Karen, would you read 12:7?
Oh, sorry, okay. And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. Do you want me to keep going?
Okay, so what we have is that they've traveled from Haran to a great tree there at Shechem. And if you, let me see if we can find Shechem on this map. I have another map too. Let's see if we need that map.
It's on the land of Canaan. It's
Yeah.
below,
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, you got it. But
Megiddo or whatever.
Megiddo.
Where?
Right there.
That's
Look there
Valley.
close to the Mediterranean Sea.
Yep, right
You
on
see
the
where
sea.
it says
Oh,
the
I
word
see.
Canaan?
I don't see it.
You
Shechem.
see
Here.
Megiddo, and then you see Shechem underneath it.
Jerusalem.
Where?
It's,
I can't see it because I got the wrong glasses on, so don't ask me to read.
Okay.
that's in there.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. So we know where
Here's
Shechem
this.
is, and he stopped there at a tree.
Wow, that's a long trip.
Oh yes, we've gone from Ur of the Chaldees, we've gone to Haran, and now we're down in Shechem.
Wow.
And that's a 75-year-old man and his 65-year-old wife and his nephew Lot.
Goes to show you age means nothing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
They went
All right. So
they went
God
up
is
the river,
speaking to
'cause I
him
thought
now.
one was go straight across.
And then they went down.
Now, what we're going to see after this, let's look at Genesis 12:7. A simple and direct prophecy of God's gift of the land to Abram's offspring, Israel. There are no conditions at this point attached to this promise. It is the unconditional declaration of a sovereign God. Neither is there a time limit placed upon the duration of Israel's ownership. So, when we have that verse 7, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring, I will give this land. Not to Lot's, to Abram's offspring. And he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. To Abram's offspring.
So he was 75 and she was 65.
Yes. Exactly. To his offspring.
Now, what I
Exactly.
want to ask you, this is like the craziest question of all. When did it become Israel? When did the name Israel
Oh,
come?
okay, okay, then.
And we're going to get to Jacob later.
Jacob.
Oh, okay.
Is that when Jacob wrestled with the?
Yeah.
I know that. I just wanted to know.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
I love you.
Okay. All right, so there's that first promise of the land. Keep that in mind. We've got the first promise in chapter 12.
That's
And
awesome.
we read that Abram, Sarai, and Lot descended into Egypt for a time. What is important in our story is that once they returned to the land of Canaan, they had so much wealth and cattle that Abram and Lot needed to separate. So now we're going to get a separation between Lot and Abram. So Karen, would you again read
So
in
much wealth.
Genesis 13 verses 14 to 16?
Okay. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, Lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and if the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. And is
yeah.
that it?
Yeah. So again, it is reiterated, I'm giving you this land. Right now, the Canaanites are in the land, but they're not going to be there forever. We're going to get rid of them because I'm giving it to you. And God owns the whole world. He can give land to who he wishes to give it to.
That's right.
But right now, Lot is still there. He hasn't left the land. So we're going to go find out what happens next. We need to read Genesis chapter 15. And we're going to need to read that whole chapter. Who would like to read that to us?
Well.
Robert, go ahead.
I'll get going here. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, Do not be afraid, Abram, I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward. But Abram said, Lord God, what will you give me, seeing I go childless, and the heirs of my house is Eliezer and Damascus? Then Abram said, Look, you have given me no offspring, indeed, one born in my house is my heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, The one you shall not be your heir, but one will come from your own body, shall be your heir. Then he brought him outside and said, Look now towards heaven and count the stars, if you are able to number them. And he said to him, so shall your descendants be. And he believed the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness. Then he said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans, to give you this land to inherit it. And he said, Lord God, how shall I know that I will inherit it? So he said to him, Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, and a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Then he brought all these to him, and cut them in two down the middle, and placed each piece opposite the other. But he did not cut the bird in two. And when the vultures came down on a carcass, Abraham drove them away. Now when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abraham, and behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. Then he said to Abraham, Now certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them for hundreds of years. And also the nation whom they serve I will judge after they shall come out with great possessions. Now as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried in a good old age. You shall be buried at a good old age. But the 4th generation, they shall return here, for the iniquities of the Amorites is not yet complete. And it came to pass, when the sun went down, that it was dark, and behold, there appeared smoke over the burning torch that passed between those pieces. And on the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your descendants I have given this land, from the river Egypt to the river Euphrates. The Kenites and the Kenzanites and the Canaanites, the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims, the Ammonites and the Canaanites, the Girgashites and the Jebusites.
Okay.
That's a mouthful.
Yes, it is. It is. You did real well. You did real well.
Yikes to the sights.
That's right. Now, in chapter 16, not 16, 15. What does it take to be counted as righteous?
Because he followed what God told him to do. I mean, he believed.
He believed what God said. That's what it takes to be counted as righteous. We can hear things about messages that God has, but if we don't believe them, what good is it? We need to believe God's word and the words given to us so that we take how God describes us in the Bible and we believe that. But so many times we are contradictory to the word. That's not righteousness. Righteousness is believing God. And Abraham absolutely believed God. He believed him, but then there's a little problem. It doesn't happen right away. That's where we tend to get in trouble. When we think we need to help God, we're going to help him help all of this come to pass because we're sure that God needs our help. And God does not need our help. So we're going to take a look at this. We're going to look at chapter 16. Who would like to read that chapter? Okay, go ahead.
Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, "See now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Please go into my maid. Perhaps I shall obtain children by her." And Abraham heeded the voice of Sarai. Then Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. So he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes. Then Sarai said to Abram, "My wrong be upon you. I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between you and me." So Abram said to Sarai, "Indeed, your maid is in your hand. Do to her as you please." And when Sarai dealt harshly with her, she fled from her presence. Now the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, Sarai's maid, where have you come from, and where are you going?" She said, "I'm fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai." The angel of the Lord said to her, "Return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand." Then the angel of the Lord said to her, "I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be counted for multitude." And the angel of the Lord said to her, "Behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. He shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren." Then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, "You are the God who sees." For she said, "Have I also here seen him who sees me?" Therefore the well was called Bir Lahai Roi. Observe, it is between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram.
86, 85 when that baby was conceived. God needed some help, so let's just throw in Hagar, the handmaiden. Now Hagar came because they had gone down into Egypt. They'd been there. The leader of Egypt had seen that Sarah was told about how beautiful this 70-year-old woman was, and took her to be his wife in his harem. But he didn't lie with her, and instead what happened while she was there is that they all became ill. And then somebody said, you know, what's going on? And Lot was the one who supposedly spoke up. That's not in the Bible, that's in commentary, and said, well, you've got his wife. And they went, what? And so whenever she was brought back to Abraham, that leader said, get out of the country. And the reason that the commentary says they said to get out of the country is that somebody else could desire her too, and they couldn't guarantee her safety, and that would bring a great sin on their nation. So she's been taken once before. So here we have chapter 16. When she was sent out, she was given an Egyptian handmaiden as a gift, along with they gave her silver and gold and all this kind of stuff. So that's where Hagar came from. So now Hagar's in her hands, and they're saying, well, God said this. We believe it's going to happen. Maybe it's this way. We're always trying to figure out the prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't come out exactly the way we think or in the timing we think. But so that's why we have this tendency to help God, and then we can look back and go, maybe that wasn't such a good decision after all. You know, that's the nice part about hindsight is, yes, we can judge it then, but we have a hard time judging what to do about certain situations, looking at it in the face. So now we see something else happens after Ishmael is born, and I love this part. In chapter 17, we're going to read that. That's a whole chapter. But who would like to read that for us?
I can read it.
Okay, go ahead, Karen.
I'll use my little thing.
There you go.
And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but the name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish a covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee and their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to the seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep, between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in the house, or brought with money, or any stranger which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house, and he that is brought with or bought with thy money must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. And 15, and God said unto Abraham, As for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? And Abraham said unto God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah, thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee, and at this set time in the next year. And he left off with him, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were brought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the same day, as God had said unto him. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9, when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old, when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son. And all the men of his house born in the house, and bought with money of the stranger, were circumcised with him.
Big changes
Wow.
in that chapter. What are some of the big changes that took place?
The name changes of Sarah and Abraham, and then the thing about circumcision, about dividing, making his people, making a covenant with him.
Yes,
About these are going to be your people.
yes. Okay, so you wouldn't think so much about the name changes, but God's always saying, call those things that be not as though they were, and changing him from Abram to Abraham, father of nations. Anyone who spoke to him, and anytime he said, my name is Abraham, his body's hearing that.
Hmm.
And that's what God did in the beginning in Genesis. He spoke things out, and they happened. And so God was telling him, you got to change your names because you have a greater fulfillment here. So that happened. And that's why it's important what we even say to ourselves. We need to say positive things to ourselves. Sometimes that's hard. But then also he reiterates about the land, and then he tells about the covenant. And notice, God waited to give that covenant. I mean, he'd already told him he was going to have children, but he knows what we're going to pull. He knew that Abraham and Sarah would try to help out the situation. So Ishmael was born before circumcision, so that whenever Isaac is born, Isaac is coming through the promise. The circumcision is the promise. If God had had him do the circumcision earlier, then Ishmael would have been in that promise, and he wasn't ever meant to be. This was meant to be a child of Abraham and Sarah. So we have that circumcision, and it says circumcision is established as the token of or sign of God's eternal covenant with Abraham. So that's very important. Now the next chapter, right after he's told all of this, then we have the 3 visitors, and we're not going to go ahead and get started with that, because now this means we're talking about Abraham, and we're also talking about the future of Lot. What happens to him? And we'll wait till next week and get into that story, because that's quite extensive and I don't want to break it all up. So we'll stop there for today, and we're going to get into Lot and what happens to him.
Fantastic.
We're going to get into what happens to Abraham and Sarah, because something else is going to happen to Sarah in this next part.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, dum dum dum. That's right. There is a future.
Exactly.